Well, Canadian leaders here at home are taking more steps to keep people buying Canadian in the face of Donald Trump's trade war. Provincial and federal officials yesterday signed another agreement to drop more interprovincial trade barriers. And Janice McGregor joins us live from Ottawa with the details. Janice, I know you've been digging into this. Can you give us a breakdown of what this latest move is all about?
Well, the basic idea is pretty simple. Going forward, if one province determines that a given product is safe, the province next door is now agreeing to take that province's word for it rather than duplicating and having its own certification process. In announcing this latest deal, BC's Minister for Jobs and Growth, Ravi Kahlon, called it the largest red tape reduction in Canadian history. But if you have been following the interprovincial trade barrier file for the last decade or so, you probably are feeling like you've heard that rhetoric before, like when Canada's internal free trade agreement came into effect back in 2017, and they were supposed to be dropping all these kind of barriers at that point, or even earlier this year on Canada Day, which was the original deadline for all the provinces, territories, and the federal government to have dropped the internal trade barriers in this country. This latest mutual recognition agreement represents incremental progress. I was looking at the actual deal this morning. It's 45 pages. I can tell you that more than 3/4 of the pages in the actual text list exemptions that various provinces and territories want to have, so goods that they don't want to be covered by this elimination of red tape. They're going to maintain their own regulations for those goods nevertheless. But for the ministers who were gathered in Yellowknife for their meeting yesterday, as well as BC's minister who was speaking to reporters in Victoria, nevertheless, they all say this is meaningful progress after years of negotiation. Take a listen.
This agreement makes it easier for goods that meet the rules in one province or territory to be sold across Canada without extra approvals, labels, or testing. For businesses, it means they can sell across Canada, save time and costs, have a bigger reach, grow and create new jobs.
This follows a separate announcement earlier this week by the federal government, which is also implementing regulations as a result of its own Free Trade and Labor Mobility Act that was part of C5 that was passed last June. It too is going to recognize more provincial standards as complying going forward with federal standards. These are things like the size and weight of products, its performance, like energy efficiency standards, how things are packaged and labeled. It's also going to start recognizing certain professional workers like land surveyors and locomotive engineers to allow them to move more freely across Canada. But notably, it is not going to apply to professions regulated by provincial bodies like the construction trades or healthcare workers. The federal changes take effect January 1st. The provincial changes take effect next July 1st. The Federation of Independent Business called this a major step forward, but it urged provinces to expand it because right now it will not apply to food and beverages. They still face an awful lot of regulations across this country. Agricultural products that move across borders are part of a federal standard that is administered by the Canadian Food Inspection Agency. But for a long time, local businesses that sell only in their local communities have been reluctant to have to comply with a federal food safety standard. So provinces have been maintaining their own systems. They are not mutually recognized right now, and we still have that duplication when it comes to food.
And Janice, you know, as you point out, all of these exemptions exist. So how big of an economic impact could this really have?
Yeah, and here, unfortunately, we have to do some fact-checking, kids, because yesterday ministers were throwing around some pretty big numbers to describe the potential of cutting red tape like this, talking about $200 billion in potential economic gain. But I actually talked to the economist behind that figure, which was from modeling done back in 2022 last summer. And it's a very rosy outcome that is going to take decades to realize if and only if every barrier came down. And in fact, that would include things that are politically unpalatable right now, like French language requirements in Quebec or the dairy, egg, and poultry marketing boards that no politician is talking about dismantling right now. And remember, as these protections come down, there could be losers, people who lose jobs, businesses that lose their competitive advantage. That's why these barriers were in place and kept up for so long. In fact, the economists behind this modeling told me that once you factor in potential losses, the actual overall economic gains from incremental moves like this may be small and not move the needle actually very that much.
Janice McGregor in Ottawa, thank you very much.
You're welcome.